Signore e signori, abbiamo più influenza, sui tuoi figli di te, Molly amiamo creato e iniziato da New Jersey. Last week today lived presentato da Filtastic, Comics and Art.
Let's fucking go.
Morning, everybody out there in YouTube land, Facebookville, LinkedInburg, and parts unknown. Welcome back to the show. Last week, today live. I have a good show for you today. I hope it's a good show. I know it's going to be a good show. We have a special mystery guest with us, and it's not me. Not me at all. Yes, little tease, little something I'm trying to do. I think when I have a member from the community on who's going to be a guest, and yes, that's a clue. Before we get into that and start saying our hellos and whatnot, just a couple brief little, I guess you could say, housekeeping things. Actually, before I get into that, congratulations to everybody who participated in or helped promote C3, Comics Curing Cancer. The last result I saw was, I think, slightly over $54,000 raised, $4,000 past the goal. Not bad for sticker people, huh? Yeah, look, I don't even have a sticker, and that's the most you're going to hear me get into that, at least for now. But you know, a job well done by all. Again, whether you bid on something, whether you contributed something, whether you bought something, I should say, and whether you even if you just promoted it and didn't buy it, you know, awesome job from an amazing community, and I'm really not surprised. Actually, I'll say this. I think if it weren't for the hurricane issues we had last week, it probably would have doubled that, because I think a fair amount of people maybe were unable to get on and participate to the fullest because of the storms in the southeastern part of the nation. So let's see who else is here with us today. Las Cruces from New Mexico. By the way, you may see me duck out of camera. Why? Because I need breakfast yet. So this is totally professional, right? Madam Blaster, how are you? Or Madam, excuse me, Madam Stephanie. Collectomania, how are you? And we have Mike from Evil's Comics here so far. Mike is awesome. I'm going to be on Mike's channel again. Oh, what that was. Weird basement noises. Fun stuff. I'm going to be on Mike's channel later tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to discuss, we're not talking about The Dark Tower, but we are talking Stephen King. We're going to be talking Salem's Lot. We're going to be talking the original TV series. We're going to be talking the novel, of course, and the most recent HBO Max series. So be there for that. I definitely have some thoughts. I think I caused the odd noises. Okay. Yeah, I definitely have some thoughts that I would certainly love to share. If I could give you a preview, you know what, I'll do this. I'm not going to talk about those things, but I'll say I did also watch Return to Salem's Lot, the sequel to the miniseries. I think it came out in 1987, which we are not discussing tonight from what I understand. And if you have to, first of all, read the book. I'll say that. Great book. If I had to say don't watch one of the movies or the miniseries, it would be Return to Salem's Lot. Yeah, no, Evil's even asking how was Return. And again, we're not discussing this tonight. I would say this. If you took a dumpster fire and then poured a entire bucket of gasoline into it, that would be this film. Oh, Dale Suspense is here. How are you, Dale? Yeah. I did not enjoy Return to Salem's Lot whatsoever. I actually quit about 3/4 of the way in, and I was like, I'm here anyway. Let's just see how this rolls out. And I put it back on, and the final scenes bordered on goofy. I think I would spoil it for you but I I don't think there's anything more spoilery. I don't think there's anything worse than actually seeing this movie. I will say this: I was a little concerned at one point. Well, here I'll tell you this: this isn't a spoiler for the film, but Mike, just to show you how terrible this is, the new sect of vampires that are in Jerusalem's Lot or Salem's Lot, they don't they present themselves as they don't eat people anymore. They instead eat cows. So yeah, nothing more intriguing than a vampire who likes a good raw steak, or rare steak, I should say. I will say this: I was a little afraid at one point that they were going to take a page out of the Fantastic Four lore, more specifically the Skrulls, the Skrull Kill Crew. If you don't know what that is, the Skrulls who are shapeshifters. And look, I know comic people know this, but people who may not be familiar with comics, the Skrulls were turned into cows by the Fantastic Four at one point, because that was the 60s and that was a way to end it. And then that turned into Skrull burgers and whatnot. Not well. And you know what? If I were Stephen King, I would have sued. I'll say that. I probably, like, legally or something could not do so, but whatnot. But excuse me, I digress. They've been to Chick-fil-A. Very funny. I will say this. I got totally off track, of course. Yeah, so let's go back into that housekeeping. Three Good Nerds is here. How are you all? Yeah, so first and foremost, as far as housekeeping goes, starting today, this will no longer be a weekly show. I'm going to go every other week. I need a little room, to be honest with you, to navigate personal things as well. So we're going to try this out, see how it goes. Maybe we go back to weekly, maybe we don't. Something I'm going to try out. So show this week, right now, you're watching me, or you're not, I don't know. Next week, no show. And then the following week, I'll have a show. Honestly, the best way to of course, keep up with this, if you're not subscribed, is to subscribe or follow on IG. Or if you do subscribe, just put that little notification thing on, so anytime I throw a video up or decide to go live, here I am. I also just realized I forgot to put my headphones and microphone in, which you may be picking up noise from upstairs. It's been a bad week, people. We've been running around, 2 sick kids, and yeah, that's what we've been navigating. Second piece of housekeeping: Legacy Comics with an X.com, Condry Digital Edition #4, The Job Dark Matches. Every purchase, a donation is made to Comics Curing Cancer. I don't know how long that goes on for, to be honest with you. I wasn't part of the deal-making process. I probably should have found that out before I said something. But I'm going to go ahead and say, if you haven't gotten your copies yet, go ahead and do so. Let's see. Oh, and of course, the Comic Book Community Awards. Your voting time is expiring soon. Only one more week to go to get your votes in. Again, this channel is miraculously nominated for 3 awards, which I probably have no shot of winning, but I'm going to try here anyway. Favorite channel under 1,000. I think it's tier 1 to 999 subscribers. Favorite community artist, and best unboxing, or favorite, I think, is best unboxings, 1 to 999. Go ahead, cbcawards.org. And yeah, again, that cuts off next Saturday. And if you are fan, for friends on Facebook or LinkedIn or IG or Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, thank you, Evil. I'm probably going to be bombing that. Okay, so before I get to my guest, hey, Comic Cap, how are you? That's not my guest. Before I get to my guest, I figure we'll have a little game. We're going to see if we could play something called guess the guest. So I will give you guys a chance to guess the identity of the guest. And I will give you, let's say, 2 clues. You guys ready to play? I guess I should say that, only if you're in YouTube on the chat, you're able to play. But you could play at home if you're watching on Facebook, I guess, of course, or LinkedIn or something else I'm just not aware of. Dale's ready, so I'm going to go with it. And somebody guessed it right off the bat. It's like, wow, man, I'm going to stretch this out. It's going to be like a 10-minute thing. I was like, nope. 20 seconds. There you go. So Evil is correct right off the bat with his Sherlock Holmes-like deduction skills. Again, I'm a professional. Yeah, I'll bring her on and then I'll explain that. So without further ado, let me go ahead and bring my guest to the stage. And hello.
Hi.
I honestly thought we were going to get at least 5 minutes out of that, but
sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, Evil's just too smart for us. Yeah, I tried to throw everybody off with throwing Bishop in the channel art, but well, yeah, I know, that's why I put Bishop in there too. So, madam, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing okay. How are you? You're struggling, it seems.
Yeah, that's just been just like the past at least 15 years or so. So we're getting there though. No, it's been a little chaotic in the house this week, and of course, it's all going on now. So I just invited Madam on here just for a hangout. We're going to talk about whatever we talk about. If you guys have any questions, throw it in there as well. So tell everybody what's going
on. What's going on with me?
Yeah. What's the hat?
Let's see. I've been doing a lot of sculpting. Mostly my own stuff, not for commission. And I'm going to do a shoot tonight. I've been putting it off. I have to do a shoot for a new cover for a different comic book.
And I'm going to say this. She's scared. I'm sure she shared some of her sculptures with me on IG. If I had a laptop, I would share these to you, but they are nothing short of magnificent.
Oh, thank you.
What? Tell us more about this photo shoot you have going on.
Well, I can't even tell you the name of the comic or anything, but I'm basically gonna be like an immortal Joan of Arc.
See, I was gonna say Bishop. There we go. That's why I threw it in.
So, yeah.
So, let's see. You just said I was going to ask you more about that, but then you said we really can't talk about it. Tell me more. What are you? Tell me, what do you enjoy more right now? Cosplay, art, comics?
Oh, art for sure.
So,
art, sculpting. I enjoy drawing for C3. I drew some comic book covers. I still have to send off.
Yeah, if you guys didn't see that, do you have that up on your IG?
No, I have one right here.
Yeah,
I haven't sent it off yet. I'm so terrible.
Beautiful work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Evil's asking, how did the shoot go?
Yeah, see, it was delayed again. So it added tonight. And I did this one too.
Evil, I think that's going to be a question after tonight. He wants to know about chafing.
About the chafing?
Look, I guess whenever you're dressing up for something, I mean, that is a concern.
Okay, now I will tell you about tonight. Now, if you think of Joan of Arc, right? You think of, what does she wear?
Shoes.
Armor.
Next guess.
Right? So, got an armor bra thingy. right? Most uncomfortable piece of cosplay I've ever put on my body. It made me wish I was wearing Red Sonja's metal chain bra.
You know, I often wondered about that. I forgot where we've seen characters who have, you know, like breast armor or something. Like, you know, that can't feel nice, especially if it's cold.
It doesn't, and you can't even suit it up. Like I need assistance to like get in the outfit because you can't do it yourself. There's too many straps and stuff, and like I'm sticking cotton balls under it, and it's just suffering for art.
There you go. So what is it? This is going to be a very kind of almost famous like question. What is it the most that you like about art?
Well, I like that I am proficient at its language. I think art is like a language, and that's what I think.
In that same vein, as I try not to choke, do you feel your art has to have, or art in general has to have a message?
I feel art needs to be, it doesn't need to have a message per se, but if it can evoke a feeling, that's saying something too, you know? I mean, there's wallpaper, you know, and people say like, oh, they take a square and say, that's art, you know, but there's a difference between good art and art that will not survive the centuries of time. You know what I mean? That's the scrutiny of time.
That's something interesting. So what is it that, give us an example of something you feel will not survive?
Oh, like I really like a lot of the just not like someone threw away somebody's art the other, like in the news the other day. It was like 2 beer cans they had painted or something. They're like, no, that was my art. It's like it looked like trash, so we threw it away. And like, you know, sorry. like, so I think all the kind of kitschy stuff, you know what I mean? The stuff that is just there just for a one-time kind of gotcha, I think those will be gone. And then I think a lot of the abstract stuff, I don't know if that will translate.
I don't know. I feel like,
well, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I don't know that I agree with you so much on the abstract artwork, just because I feel like you're always going to hear about, you know, the big names, your Pollock and whatnot. One thing I could tell you that I've seen, I think kind of the tide turn on a little bit compared to when I was in college. I remember my professors, you know, when I went to school, they're very, very, this is fine art and this is not fine art. We'll say that.
Oh, really?
And Roy Lichtenstein was one that they always held up as this is fine art because a lot of them studied under him.
Yeah.
And now I feel like 20 years later, the tide is kind of turning a little bit more on Lichtenstein, and it's mostly because of comic book artists. For people who might not realize it, might not know who we're talking about, Roy Lichtenstein is an abstract artist, abstract expressionism, and what he used to do is he would actually get comic panels, usually from the news strip. I think he only did like maybe 1 or 2 from comics themselves, and he would blow them up. So he wasn't painting like the image in the comic. He was actually doing the individual dots like that you would see on the newspaper. And of course, when he was all done, it would look like the comic book panel, and he might throw in some sort of word balloon or whatnot. I don't know, am I misstating anything there? It's been a while since I studied any of that.
No, sounds like you got it.
It's been a point of contention among comic book artists for a long time because he would put up a panel. There's one in particular, and he, you know, you'd go to the museum, you would see this panel in this painting, and it would have Roy Lichtenstein's name on it. It was like, but hold on a second, it's a copy of, I don't know, another artist. It's a copy of, let's say, a Kirby. I don't know if it's a Kirby. I'm just using that as an example. So for the longest time, comic book artists have been saying, no, that's not a Lichtenstein. That's Lichtenstein copying Kirby. And now I feel like the art community is finally embracing that more. They're kind of right now putting an asterisk on it. So who knows? Maybe another 10 or 20 years that might be out of favor altogether. What about the hot topic? I know with me, I hate when I see this, and you are seeing it more and more, in my opinion, on social media. AI art.
What?
Artificial intelligence art. Is that something that'll be here in 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah, unfortunately. I people will I think people will seek out though humans to make art though. I don't think that'll ever be uh done away with or anything because of AI. You know what I mean? AI is probably gonna take a lot of jobs away from like people who do design stuff.
Oh, I have heard entire art department going away.
You what?
I've heard entire art departments for companies just going away because it's like, oh well, we have a computer, we can type what we want in. But I honestly think at some point there will be some sort of a what I would like to see legislation against. Hey, if you steal somebody's style, which is basically what it is now, and you try to sell it or claim it as your own, that's copyright infringement. There was a bill that was on the floor in California recently that just failed. I think actually no, I'm sorry. The bill itself didn't fail. The governor vetoed it, which basically would allow would make AI companies have to say no. This is based on this. It had to basically quote the source material right into it. And I think that we're taking further steps there. I really do think we need somebody in Congress basically to really champion it, and then we have to figure out the rest of the world. But
yeah, I'm sure we can do that like in the next couple minutes. Let's do that.
That's why we're all here. We're going to talk comics. We're going to talk cosplay and what and streaming, and we're going to just solve the major world issues as we see it. So speaking of comics streaming, when you're looking at actually Evil has a good question I want to jump into. I like this a lot. I never thought about this. With the normalized use of 3D printing, do you feel it has taken away from sculpting?
Well, it's interesting because I've had somebody suggest to me when I'm sculpting, like I'm like a current project of mine, I'm doing like little flowers, okay, like sculpting little flowers, little leaves, and the person's like, why don't you just get a 3D printer and then you can print these off, and stick them on there, right? Trying to get me to go to the dark side. I said,
what did you say to them?
I said no. I said I need to sculpt it with my hands.
Yeah, and I think I'm assuming that was for a client, but
no, this is just for me. This is just for my stuff,
Well, you're a client of your own. There you go.
I hope to sell something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that even if there is a rise in AI, there's always going to be a market or that art appreciator who says no, I want people.
It's going to be just like comic collectors. Like comic collectors want certain comics that are original, that are made by the certain person. One certain person becomes famous, they collect that person's stuff too. So
yeah, there you go. Well, I have to say one of the things I do appreciate about the comic book industry in general is it seems that anytime I'll say blatant AI has been involved in comic art, unless it's advertised as, hey, this is AI, kind of rebel against it. Look at the most recent was that Mascara Massacre, Italian artist who was trying to sell an AI cover to DC and messed up the look this up. It came on my radar because what's the guy's name? Ari help me out, from Marvel.
Granoff?
Yes. Aubrey Granoff was complaining about this guy, and he pointed out, hey, look, this is a guy who has stolen my postures before in my drawings and whatnot. And now look at this. He obviously used AI, and he pointed out like the Superman S, like the S was backwards. And sure enough, I think, I could be wrong, I think DC either pulled the future covers or just kind of cut ties with him. But yeah, look it up, because people are trying to sneak something past us. But luckily, I think the companies, number one, are wise enough to say, hey, look, this is not what our consumers want yet. Now, I know that there have been theories or rumors that DC has published AI covers recently, but that's about as much as I know about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that true art, to last the test of time, it has to be intrinsically beautiful, right? Like when we pick up pieces of like Egyptian art, from the sand, and we're picking up a piece of a face or something, and it's perfectly formed, and you have like, wow, like just think this was made so many thousands of years ago, and this is still what we're doing, kind of thing, you know? Like the respect is still there, I don't know. And I feel like it's a language for sure. And it's because of that, our language should be protected or whatever too. And it is protected, I believe. So
I like that. Question for us. If you went to space and met a robotic sentient race, would you be against seeing the races of art or hear a story? Hold on. Let me try to read this again. If you went to space and met a robotic sentient race, okay, would you be against seeing the race's art or hear a story from them? Well, I think we could do both.
Why would I be against it?
I don't know. Evil, do you not like alien sentient races?
I would be most interested in their art that a different species had made. That would be fascinating.
I would think for me, a lot of,
and just influence us more.
Well, I would think not so much influence, but just for the reasons that you said. I think when you look at a civilization's artwork, whether it's from a different time or whatnot, you're really getting a snapshot of their culture at that time.
Yeah.
What's the difference against I don't understand the question. Well, what's your stance with it?
Like he's saying like they're aliens, like AI is like aliens. So why would I not want to see AI art? I mean, I'm not saying I don't want to see AI art, but I think it needs to stay in its place.
The issue
it's almost like the kind of is the same issue, like about like boys swimming as girls or whatever and winning trophies and gold medals and stuff. Like AI is the same thing.
See, now I think there's a difference. See, AI in itself, AI just existing, is not inherently a bad thing. It's a tool.
Yeah.
You use AI, for artwork, for saying, hey, look, I want to figure out how does a model kind of look or whatnot.
Right. And it's great for somebody who's not very artistic, for them to just speak it and it become manifested.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the problem I run into it with it is when you say, hey, I want to, and look, type in the prompts. You can type in a prompt that says Frank Cho. You could type in a prompt that says, Artgerm, and it's like, okay, here is the computer's interpretation of Frank Cho or Artgerm. When you get to the point where you're stealing styles, people's individual style, and it's never, at least in my opinion, nowhere near as good as if that person sat down and drew it. That's when I run into an issue, and then we as people, you have businesses coming in, just like we were saying, and it's like, well, we don't need to hire an artist here. We just typed it in and it's good enough. Like it's devaluing things, and I see it when it's used like that. I do see it as an attack on the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you're using AI just as a tool to say how does shading work, whatnot, again, that's an exception. If you're using it just for yourself, if you're not selling anything, why don't we say that? I have no issue. But when you're saying, make me a drawing that looks just like John Romita Jr.'s, why? That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think all artists copy and learn from each other and borrow from each other and borrow from history and what's been done in the past. I think that we're all guilty of copying off someone else's paper in terms of art. You know what I mean? Like, oh, he's copying my stance that I had for this or something. Like, well, maybe you should be flattered, you know? And maybe people will see AI and be like, well, that's AI. That's a different category. This person made this. This is now more intrinsically valuable too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm more of the. I think the way that AI is being presented now is the equivalent of if I, not so much taking a stance, but if I said, oh, let me just take a piece of tracing paper and trace right over it. That's what I'm thinking. Because like stuff like stances and whatnot, there's only so many stances I think that you can do. So many interesting kind of traditional kind of poses and whatnot I think that you can do. I mean, I think that's why when I see something that's a little bit more abstract, personally, like I like Mike Del Mundo. He's got, all those poses, but he also does a little bit more abstract. I think that's why I gravitate towards that kind of stuff personally. With AI art, it's just like, hey, make me a picture that looks like so and so did it. That's my impression, at least. That's what I've seen. So let's see.
Wow. Well, I don't know. Maybe if they don't give them credit, then I guess I can see your point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
know.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a murky field, a murky area.
Yeah, and really, it's the technology itself is not what's murky. It's how people are using it and presenting it that really kind of screws everything up, for lack of a better description.
Yeah. So if I were to say something to the AI, right, and it generated a picture for me, right, and then I took that picture and I printed it off, and then I like you said, I took tracing paper and I traced over it, but I shaded it and made it, all monotone and all my interpretation of that picture, and that way the AI would be a tool for me.
Right, and then, like I said,
and I will have produced art that was influenced by AI.
Right. I would find fault if you went into that AI program and said, draw me a landscape that looks like so-and-so drew it. You know what I'm saying? Because at that point, you are the user is I think, creating something with the purpose of, hey, I want to make my drawing look like I didn't do it.
If you're giving a specific style, I don't see a problem with that either, because you can paint anything in a style similar to someone else's art too,
Well, right. Look, I have an Arthur Sudam print up here. I can eye that and say, okay, I'm going to paint in that style. But if I were to say, okay, I'm going to take this, I'm going to make a copy of it, and I'm going to make it look like I did that exact piece, if I'm going to duplicate it,
yes,
that's when I run into an issue. Like I guess what I'm getting hung up on, my kind of distinction there is, are you influenced by it? Are you growing from it? Or are you copying it and mass producing it?
Yeah, of course, that's a big difference.
Is using a tool in regard to talent bad? I mean, I think it's how you use the tool.
I think anything that you can use that's going to help you along, you should be able to use,
I've been looking at
exploring for all options.
Yeah, I've been looking at myself for a little bit. I've been drawing mostly digitally for a while. I do traditional as well. But I was exploring the idea of, well, what if I draw on my iPad? And then I saw they were selling some sort of device. I think it's called I don't even know what it's called, that basically kind of works like an overhead projector, but it projects onto like you're drawing from.
Right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I was like,
They used to have something like that in the Middle Ages, I think. A way of like taking mirrors and light and projecting an image on the paper so they could trace it, basically someone's portrait or something, right?
yeah, I was considering even looking into that, and I was like, you know, I don't really know how I kind of feel about that. You know, on one hand, I'm, you know, I do feel like it's cheating a little bit, but I mean, one thing that, you know, people might not know if you're not an artist or whatnot, you know, the whole reason that you have that easels are tilted, let's say, or that they say that, you know, when you see a good drawing surface it's tilted, is because there is a little bit of a disconnect between what you see and what you're drawing, so that your shapes are a little skewed, basically. I don't. What's the best way to describe that, Adam?
For your perspective's off. It's not perfect perspective.
Yeah. And I think it's something that you can correct for over time, but you know, so I think this kind of device might help in that regard. Like, look, if you're projecting your own image that you drew, and like, look, I just want to duplicate the same image, because it's very hard to draw the same thing, at least for me.
Right.
Like
place. Okay.
Yeah, you're always going to have some sort of small variant or whatnot.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I could see the value that way, but like I said, I haven't taken the plunge yet, because I'm like, do I really need something like that?
Yeah. I mean, humans are sloppy, you know, and we aren't perfect, and that's why our art isn't all perfect, you know, either. It really isn't.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I think that it kind of feeds into this idea that, I don't know, to me, every time that you draw, every time that you sculpt, every time you do some sort of art, whether it's around for 10 years or a million years, there is that bit of a personal flair and personal interpretation into that work. You know,
it's a language. It's a language.
Yeah. And you're constantly building off of past experience to that end.
Yeah, it's a language, and I think everyone has a certain like accent to the language, you know, which would be your style, you know.
And that's something I can't really.
That's something what?
I think that's I cannot accurately duplicate, because it's basically, this is how this person's style looks in the moment. Yeah, moment whenever it was uploaded, I should say.
Okay.
If I can't draw using paper and pen, and I buy a digital device to draw with, will it grant me the ability to draw? I would guess with practice. You know, something I've found interesting. I remember reading or seeing a video with Todd McFarlane years ago, where what he used to do to teach himself to draw, to really perfect his craft, if he said, look, I need help drawing hands, he basically locked himself up in his office for a week and drew nothing but hands, just until it wasn't just so much as he got it right, but it was like, at that point, just a muscle memory, like, oh, here's a hand.
He studied it enough that it could be in his memory, all the different hand forms, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're using,
recall,
my opinion at least, if you're using a device like this just to say, let me learn how to draw hands, and then at some point, I mean, I guess that's the crucial point, cutting off and saying, all right, I'm going to try to freehand it, I think that you're okay there. If you're, hey, I'm going to copy this picture and just sell it, that's, I think, obviously when I have an issue.
Yeah.
So let's talk about cosplay. How do you choose your cosplay characters?
Well, I chose this one and just impulsively, because I saw on your thumbnail there was Poison Ivy there. So, well, and I didn't like my hair this morning, so there was that.
That's why.
That was the nail in the coffin of the decision there. So.
Well, in general, like the first time you dress as a character, what is it that makes you say, hey, you know, this looks like fun, I want to give it a go?
I like dressing up. Like, even when I'm not like in cosplay, Like what if you see me going out, or you know me in real life or something, like I'm usually dressed up. I really like to I think of it like a canvas, like the makeup and everything, and the hair, and her style and everything, and yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I don't think I've ever shared this on YouTube before. About 10 or so years ago, I used to have, just as a side hustle, an internet business, very kind of product driven. And anything I sold, I would try, or I would at least study and kind of get behind. So this is before I met my wife, but this actually led me to meeting my wife. One of the things I sold briefly was makeup. I learned to apply makeup and whatnot, not on myself, on women. And one thing that struck me immediately, and why I was, I'll pat myself in the back, I was good at selling makeup, was because I understood when you put makeup on, it's not about, let me hide this, let me make sure that I look nice for whomever. It's really kind of liquid confidence in that sense. And it really, like, for the guys up here, yeah, we went from comics to makeup. That's the step. It's like, think of that awesome jacket that you have in the closet that you like to wear, how cool you feel when you're on it, because everybody has that thing that makes them feel cool.
Yeah.
That's what it does. And it's, it's kind of cool in that effect. So
you're 100% correct. Because when I'm in cosplay, I'm much more extroverted too. Like when I was Lucy at the convention, I was in full cosplay. I was up and meeting strangers and stuff. And I'm not usually very good with that. I consider myself more of an introvert, but put a wig on me and some makeup, and I'm kind of all like, I can turn into the character. It's fun. I used to like plays. Like in high school, I'd be in plays and stuff. I enjoy that part of it.
Mike actually brought up a good question. I was going to ask you. So you were just saying, Judge, you're building on what you were just saying. When was the first time that you cosplayed for public view?
Way, way back in the day when I was with my ex. So that was the first time. I think I just put on like a Spider-Gwen something.
Oh, and that was here. Also, I figured, I thought maybe there was something even before then.
No.
But I like that you've kind of taken it and just kind of the concept of cosplay, I guess you could say, and just kind of like gone onto your own with it now. Like you owned it, I guess you could.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Phil. When I thought about dressing up today, I remember that you said you were not a big cosplay fan.
Nope.
And I was like, I definitely need to dress up then for Phil.
Well, I'll say this. You're the exception.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
I think I've shared before that I've taken my wife to one con with me twice. And when I say con, it's a small. We didn't go to New York Comic Con. No, we went to Garden State Comic Fest, which is a nice con in the area here. If you guys are in the New York, New Jersey area, I highly recommend checking it out. And my wife is walking with me. And you see, like, when Stephanie cosplays, and it's very, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for.
It's called sophisticated.
There you go. No coffee today, so there you go. There's some women who were there, in my opinion, that are there to hang out. And when I'm saying hang out, I'm not talking just to hang around the building, just to, put everything out on display. And it's kind of weird at a con to me, because you have something where you have like little kids walking around too. And then you also have some people who put on what they put on just to show off, and then complain about it when people give them attention for showing off. And I don't get me wrong, I think there's a whole kind of toxic culture behind some of that, like, hey, she's dressing a certain way, whatever. But when it's, I want to show off but don't look at me or don't comment or anything like that. That's when it gets into a little bit kind of a murky territory for me. So, I mean, my whole thing is like, look, you want to dress up, that's cool. If you know that there's going to be little kids around, try to, I don't know, act appropriately. Maybe I have a more conservative look at it, but
Yeah, like think about it. I mean, even at like, I mean, there's gonna always be some inappropriate, some adult stuff going. Like even like I was looking at a kids softball game going on, and what kind of music do they have going on at this softball game where there's kids running around and stuff? They have some like killer rap music. It's like talking about hoes and stuff, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like the mix didn't make sense. But yeah, I see what you're saying, and I mean as long as everything's covered, and if you think about it, and as long as everything's covered and it's like it would be at the beach, then I think that you can get away with it.
hey, Christina.
Hi,
Yeah,
Christina.
I'll say this: what I can appreciate somebody who sits down and takes the time to put together a well-crafted costume. I'm really impressed by like the people who make these giant kind of things that you need like two people to make sure you don't fall over.
Right, with that styrofoam stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that there are some people who just get a little too much into it. One story I've told before too, at that same comic fest, my wife and I had just been engaged maybe 2 weeks when I took her. Yeah. Which by the way, it was like the most interesting time I've had at a con, because there were some creators who would just sit there and want to talk to us just about getting engaged, when's Len Wein, not Len Wein, I'm sorry. I can't think of his name. He actually lives around here somewhere. Len, I can't think of it. But people have said to me before, he's a notorious grumpy kind of person. He did during Convergence, when they had those like 2-issue series, he did the Superman one that Superman's son basically came from. I can't think of the name of it, but he sat and talked to us for like 10-15 minutes to the point where like we have to go. Even the longest time I felt bad because I'm terrible with names this morning. This is one of the bigger, older comic artists now. Still around, X-Men 50.
If you're looking at me, you know I'm not going to be able to pull this up out of me.
I know. Evil, help me out. That's today.
Everyone should know that.
Yeah, my brain is just done. Anyway, great older gentleman. We're holding hands and whatnot, walking around. And he was talking to us for 20 minutes. I'm like, you have a line here. It's like, they're fine. And for the longest time, I felt bad about that. And I met one of the guys who actually, not Claremont, no. He's got what I think is the nicest rug in comics. This guy's hair, it's so fake that it's great.
That's so fake.
But really nice old guy. And I met one of the creators. This is a couple of years later. Actually, it was at Doug's. Doug was having his comic book garage sale. Doug Bratton, writer. Yeah. He lives in the next town over. So we didn't know until YouTube. So I had been over to a couple things, and I was just hanging out with him and Dave. And I remember AAA Comics was there. I don't think Matt was there that time. And he comes out and he says, "Hey, look, I'm Dave. I run Comic Fest." He was actually talking about buying a whole bunch of Doug stuff in bulk, I think.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I felt bad because the last time I went, I spoke to blah, 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 and I took up a lot. He's like, don't feel bad. If you see him in a con, you're at minimum going to be there for 15 minutes because he's a talker.
Some people like to chat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's why, like, I can't picture just, no, not Cockrum. No, this was the last couple of years. Cockrum's gone a long time now. Hi, DJ. How are you?
Hi.
Yeah, he did not X-Men 50. I'm sorry. No, yeah, X-Men 50 with Polaris. I know Evil's got it. The second that we end the show, it's gonna be like, oh, it's so and so. Speaking of comic book artist, I know that you've been a big fan of Jenny Frisian. Anybody else that you're getting into now? Are there any new artists that you've kind of found? Oh, there you go.
There's some Frisian, some Poison Ivy Frisian. Goodness. Yeah, I really appreciate Middleton too. Middleton's a big, I really appreciate him. Some artists I don't appreciate, like Scotty Young.
Yeah.
It's like a one trick pony or something. I don't know.
I'll say this. With Scotty Young, I get it. It's not my bag, but I understand. I think what he is doing is his own, and I respect it. I
don't know if I do respect it because I don't think it's that good.
It's just a style that I don't appreciate. That being said, you would actually like this series. This is one he wrote. Steve the Voice White, how are you, sir? All the way from Canada. Happy Thanksgiving. Is it Canadian Thanksgiving or was that yesterday?
Oh, is it? Gobble gobble.
Steranko, there you go. Yeah, Steranko. Madam, look him up. Nicest rug in comics, I'm telling you right now.
Steranko?
Yes, and a hell of a nice guy. I'll say this too.
Let's see if I can do.
But going back to Scotty Young for a second, one thing I didn't also know, he's a pretty good writer. If you have not read The Me You Love in the Dark, and I know that that's not a groundbreaking statement, that is probably one of my favorite stories I've read in the past 5 to 10 years.
Really?
4 or 5 issue limited series. Well, I'll say this. I'll give you the premise. I'll talk about that briefly because it's Halloween-y. But keep in mind that if you actually read it, one of the great things he does is it's another story within a story. Yeah, Evil is even saying it too. So a woman who's an artist, she has to meet a big deadline. And she decides in order to do this, she's going to rent this old house out in the country so she could just sit somewhere and paint and paint and paint. She does this, but what she doesn't realize is that the house itself is haunted. And without getting too much into it, she forms a bond and even a relationship with this entity. And of course, it takes a turn. But it's a book it's one of those books that I highly recommend for people who've never read comics before. It touches on a couple big social issues that, I can even say from my perspective, without saying too much, of course not with my wife, I've been in situations where I'm in that artist's shoes and it was like, I get what she's doing with what's going on, and Young does it so well in the story that it just feels like a gut punch. So I'm gonna ask you to check that out. I'm gonna even come back to you one day and say, did you ever check that out? Yeah, Scotty does the chibi styles. He does have 2 other styles too.
Oh,
I'm in here too. Yeah. I hear you. Some of my favorites, though, I have to say, I think are the ones that I really liked as a kid. One of the artists who drew me in, no pun intended, started collecting, early Wolverine artist Mark Teixeira. And he is somebody who I think he had a recent resurgence, but you don't really see around that much often anymore. You know what I'm talking about? You look up, I'll show you a good example of his work. There was a Sabretooth limited series. I think it was just called Sabretooth, actually. And he did I think he actually did covers and interiors, if I'm not mistaken. That being said, I did meet him one year at New York Comic Con, and it was a strange meeting, which was kind of like, okay, never meet your heroes. Could just get a little weird. Nothing bad, but just strange.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, let me ask. I know that even when your profile pic jumped in, you've cosplayed before as Scarlet Witch.
Yes.
Have you followed the character further now, like into, let's say, that Doctor Strange film, and now into she's not in it, at least from what I've seen, the Agatha series?
No. For each cosplay, like, I mean, I guess I have several versions of like Poison Ivy and several versions of Emma Frost. And I have several versions of who am I thinking of? Catwoman or whatever. And that's fun for variants, but I don't think I need like every single, Scarlet Witch costume or anything. I just want enough to have fun with.
Well, let me ask you, when you're going to cosplay as one of these characters, I know that we spoke a lot about empowerment and just feeling confident. Do you find yourself in general having to be a fan of that character?
It certainly helps because, like, for the longest time, I said I wouldn't cosplay Harley Quinn because I just wasn't a Harley Quinn fan, right? And then I ended up doing it, So, and it turned out really good, and that was really fun actually. So it was kind of fun being Harley Quinn.
So did something you read or saw change your opinion on Harley Quinn that made you say, all right, let me give it a shot?
I can't think of any image or anything in particular back then that I can't remember what it was.
I mean, as a character, she did definitely have a moment not too long ago where they kind of, I think, redefined her for the better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, that's always interesting. Excuse me, while I lose my voice here.
What did you have for breakfast?
I'm still trying to eat. It's eggs mixed with sweet potato.
Wow, fancy at Philtastics.
No, I'm eating into Brian's territory. It's not really breakfast. It's kind of like midterm. Let me shove something down my throat. Why don't you tell us what I know that you can't talk about the recent photo shoot. What are some other projects that you have going on?
I wish I had more going on. I wish I had more commissions going on, but I don't. I have but because I don't have any commissions to work on, that has allowed my creativity to be used in projects that are from my own imagination and my own language, my own passion, as opposed to just recreating someone's face. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, I'm going to make this figure and, I can do whatever I want with it. And there's some freedom in that. There's some enjoyment in that,
Where do you get a lot of your commissions from? Is it one particular source?
I have a website. My cousin made a website for me.
Wow.
And so people would contact me through the website usually.
Do you want to plug it?
It's Custom Bronze Portraits.
If I had a laptop, I would have it scrolling here, but
oh yeah,
just everybody. CustomBronzePortraits.com.
Yeah, that's it.
This is my scrolling. And
I'm so bad. I haven't even updated it with like my most recent 2 huge statues I did recently. So I need to update it still.
Look, if you're not connected to Madam on IG, do so right away because she's got a lot of good things going on. Maybe you gave me a preview because I know we've shared a couple pictures, but some of those sculptures was like, wow, I'd be like, all right, here's money, make something nice.
I hope so. I really do. I'm making stuff now. Like I'm making that Batman cover, that I just started last week it's just impromptu, it's impulsive thing. And I'm really thinking of, making a mold of that and making a resin and seeing how that does.
Yeah, you may be onto something with that in general, because I mean we've seen things like the shattered covers, and I'm not detracting from anything, of course.
Mhm.
We've seen other kind of stylized covers. I don't think I've ever seen like a full-on relief of a cover before. It's
Yeah.
really, and I think you pull that off well, which there's no reason to believe for me to believe that you won't. I mean,
No, in fact, let me show you. Let me get a book for you real
all right,
quick. Can I get it real quick?
yeah, go right ahead.
This is right here. Can you see it?
I'm on my phone, so I can see it very lightly. Can you,
Okay.
can you guys see it in the chat? Oh yeah, it's a little bit better. Again, my screen is small.
And this is Batman 423, right?
Yeah, it's a much.
All right. There we go.
Yeah, that is definitely cool. I get, it's a little bit tinier because you're further back, but I don't move it around anymore. I don't want you to drop it or nothing.
No, it's fine. It's okay.
I'm loving how it's coming out so far. So
Yeah, I got the staples in. I made it. I had to straighten out the lines, and I've redone the Batman words, and written these three guys' names a lot, over and over and over again. But it was an interesting challenge to take something so 2D, so like with flat lines and not a lot of like volume information. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I translate that into like a fabric or a garment information. You know what I mean? Like it's fun.
did
I'm having
Justin
fun with it.
those letters?
What'd you say?
Did Justin approve those letters? It's from Evil.
I don't know. I'm gonna need his approval.
Okay.
I'm scared.
Well, I think it looks great so far, and I'm really
Thank you.
yeah. Actually, Steve brought something up. That'd be cool in bronze.
Yeah, it would be, and by making the mold, I would be able to make one in bronze. But you know how expensive that would be?
Oh, of course, and it would probably be nice and heavy too.
It'd be thousands of dollars. You know what I mean? So
But you have
as opposed to me learning how to do it in resin, which is going to be a lot less.
something blocked.
Ah, sorry.
Oh, there you go. That Evil saying amazing. Of course, you're super talented.
Oh,
Steve
thank you.
wants it to be worth it. So you might have another commission on your hands. There you go.
Wait, who wants one?
Steve White.
All right, you got to tell me what cover, Steve.
And Steve, look, that's thousands in US dollars. I don't even know what that goes to in Canadian. Yeah, there you go. Todd McFarlane needs to see it when you're.
See now we were discussing. Now, is he going to be flattered?
Knowing Todd, I think he'd be flattered, but I also think he'd be like, okay, pay me.
See, I think I've taken his. I mean, that's not to say we all borrow from each other, but like I took his art and I made it something different. I gave it a whole nother dimension.
I agree.
So I've tampered with it enough. I feel like it's my own.
Yeah, and it's not I don't even see it as an homage, like people are doing those homage covers and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I see this just basically as, like I said, its own thing.
Yeah.
But really well done. Again, I really want to see that. Of course, when it's done. There you go. Mike's got it perfect. Elevated.
Elevated.
Well, I've got you for a little bit over an hour already. I think it's time for us to wrap up. Is there anything you want to?
Okay. Sorry, my circle broke.
No worries.
There you go.
I'm sorry. I was saying we're about to wrap up because it's been about over an hour. Is there anything you want to plug?
I don't think so. There's going to be a ladies' night, I think, and coming up in October where we're going to be doing a costume contest. stuff like that. And then I think, let's see, Will's birthday is coming up on the 19th. He's gonna have some hangout or something. We'll vlog. So
Is the ladies' night, is that something you're gonna put up on, like online, or is that just
no, that's something on someone else's channel,
oh, okay.
but it's gonna be online. Yeah,
Okay, we'll
I
have to
think
look
it's Bethany's.
at Evil could use a good plug. Okay, tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
Yeah, see us talk about Salem's Lot novel, 2 of the movies. Yeah, just a couple guys talk about vampires. Actually, I don't even know who else is on the panel, so there might be some women on the panel too. Who knows? Maybe there's a vampire on the panel. Only Evil will tell knows. So, thank you so much for joining us, Stephanie. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me so much. And I really like your haircut and your trim. Looks good.
Thank you. I'm about due for another. I kind of look like my head has rabies right now.
No, you don't. Stop.
When you get closer, there's like some crazy stuff going on here. You know, look, during the workday, there's a lot of shellacking that has to go on. If I have
There it is.
I used to go. Look, let me explain something. This is still a big jump for me. I used to be at home 5 days a week. Now it's 1 day at home. So it's like I gotta get dressed and drive
And shower and stuff. People have to interact with people.
Thank you. Shower, I figured out. You know what? The shower, I've been either getting up really early, which I don't like to do, or
Yeah.
just right before bed. So it's just like, all right,
Yeah.
get out the door. But yeah, see, we came here for art, cosplay. We give you some life tips as well as solve the major issues in the country.
All right. Now we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about next.
You got
I
more?
say we roll into abortion, religion, world politics. So, let me go.
Evil's jealous of my hair. You know what? I was almost at one point like, I think actually when I started the channel, I had longer hair because like the middle of the pandemic when everybody just stopped caring about haircuts. And I was like, you know, if you saw that that Chris Rock doc, I don't know if you heard that Good Hair. It's interesting. At one point, he goes to India to show there's a line of women who basically what they'll do is they grow out their hair and they cut it, and that hair is used here for wigs.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe I can just do that. I'll sell my own hair and just say, hey, look, here's your made in the USA quality fantastic hair.
Phil, if you got good hair, you should grow that out. And there's plenty of locks of love, like charities that would love to have that.
I've got nothing against
Make
charity
wigs out of, for sure.
for locks for profit.
You what? You want locks for profit?
Against whatever, but yeah. But anyway, thank you again for joining me. I had a great time, and
Thank you, me too.
for checking us out. Remember, no show next week, but I'll be back the following week. All right, later all. Peace, love, and comics.